says she couldn't attend, so I'm going to start recording here. Perfect. So let's talk a little bit about Costa Rican Spanish and popular slang. And yeah, Pura Vida más is probably the 3 words you're going to hear the most while you're in Costa Rica, because it's pretty much everyday language in Costa Rican slang. Also, we're going to see if the videos, you can hear the sound and everything. One of the things that's important to understand of how Costa Ricans speak Spanish has to do a lot about the culture, our environment here in Costa Rica, which you're going to see is completely tropical, and our idiosyncrasy. We're very, very tranquilos, very calm. In one of my emails that I sent you guys, I said, to be patient with the slothy way of life because things tend to be a little bit slower. So when you're taking Spanish classes in Costa Rica, you're going to notice that we use not as much tú. Some people will use it, but for the most, nobody uses it. If they use it, it's because they've heard it, seen soap operas from Mexico or something like that. But for the most, Costa Rican uses usted, or the voceo, which is vos. It comes from old Spanish, from the days of Cervantes, when they used to say vos queréis. And this used to be a pretty formal way of talking to people. Here in Costa Rica and in Argentina and in other countries, now vos is actually completely the opposite. It's not formal at all. It's actually more of how we talk to each other amongst friends and just by having fun with people. We just talk vos. It's kind of like the equivalent of tú. It's easy to learn how to conjugate it if you took Spanish back at home and you learned the vosotros, which in Spain, vosotros is actually plural. It means you guys. Vos is you and it's singular, but they conjugate very, very similarly. So if you had already learned vosotros from the Spanish vosotros, plural you guys, vosotros sois, vosotros estáis, you'll notice that in order to learn how to say you singular in Costa Rica, all you have to do is take off the I. Vos sos, vos estás, vos querés, vos caminás. And it's pretty easy to learn once you get the hang of it. It's just a matter of practicing. One of the things is that Costa Rica has a lot of rich colloquial words and phrases. We use a lot of different slangs because of that whole different type of little regions that we have and how people use language. A lot of the Latin American colleagues say we have a pretty neutral accent. There's not a lot of ups and downs. We pretty much do pronounce every single letter. We don't end up eating S or not pronouncing something. We pretty much pronounce everything. Some of the particularities of Costa Rican Spanish is the yeísmo, and that's like allá, and anything that has the double L or the Y, you're going to notice in Costa Rica that we have a very strong j sound. Argentinians and Uruguayans actually have the sh sound, and they will say something like ya llegué or estás llorando. It's very sh, and they have the little accent. In Spain, it's actually more like an I. Yo quiero un poco más de eso. Si llegas a tiempo, and in Mexico as well. But in Costa Rica, it's more like a j. It's kind of like a mixture in between the j and the ch. So it's j. So that's another thing you're going to notice when you come. Here's a little bit about the elements of Costa Rican R's in this little video from this guy who's actually an American with some sort of Hispanic background. I think he's Chilean.
Costa Rica has a very unique accent compared to the rest of Central America or the rest of the Hispanic-speaking world. It's a very not very slow Spanish, but it's not fast by any means, like Mexican or Spain or Chilean Spanish. But the things that really set it apart, it's called their principal R's or their double R's. Like they don't say correr. Actually, two things that are funny with that word. But their double R's and principal R's, which are normally rolled, they actually do a r. And it's almost like a Z or a j, almost like a j, but the tongue, when it starts to roll, it never quite starts the rolling. So instead of going a r, it goes r. And that's how they do with their double R's. Like if they say, for instance, to run, correr, they would say correr, correr, and that r. And a lot of times they go r. And another thing that most missionaries, especially those who spoke Spanish before, can't stand, the really, I guess you could call them, I don't want to use the word redneck, but Costa Ricans that live outside of the city and are much more like on a farm or a ranch or something, that much more outback kind of accent, their ending R's, E-R-A-R-I-R, whatever, becomes a sh. And a lot of the country, it's one of those endearments, but they also make fun of themselves all the time. So a lot of times they'll call their wives, like we say in the United States, oh honey. They'll call them, oh my love, mi amor, but they say mi amor. And people will make fun of it and say, oh mi amor. But it through a lot of the people you'll meet, especially humble people from out, we call it out in the campo, out in like the I don't know, that means field, but like, you know, the boonies that we have out here in the States, they'll talk like that. They'll say, if they have to eat is comer, and they'll say, you know, ya es tiempo de comer, and they'll have that sh in there. Or like the word I used earlier, to run, correr, they say correr. And there's that. Those are probably things that stands out super strong with the Costa Rican accent. They do have their own lilting, the way that they speak. Their double L's and their Y's are also je. So they say la capilla, to go to the chapel. We say tortillas here because we're so close to Mexico, and they say tortilla. They have that je sound in there that actually I grew to love. So when I speak Spanish with my brother served in Chile, and we speak Spanish together, it just drives him up the wall. When he doesn't mind the j's because he says those too, but when I start having the je, and especially that sh, oh, he can't stand it. But it's so dear to my heart, being, you know, having served my mission there and being there so many times and having lots of friends there who speak in that way. It's a unique accent, and you will stand out when you
So now you know what it sounds like when Costa Ricans in the boonies talk.
speak Spanish afterwards.
All right, let me see.
Costa Rica has a very unique accent compared
I'm having
to the rest.
trouble getting this to pass. There we go. Okay, so oops, gee, my knees. Why am I not able to do this? Are you guys still being able to hear me? Okay, good. So at least I'm still there. I'm just not understanding why I can't get this to pass. Anyway, one of the things that's super fun with Costa Rica is that a lot of the way that people live life has to do with a long tradition of a very solid democracy. Over 100 years of a very solid democracy. We abolished our army, and many of you have commented in the orientation that you're super curious to know a little bit more about that process of the army abolishment, actually over 72 years ago. 72 years ago in 48. And one of the things of how the government decided in those days to divert all the resources to education and to our universal health care system. Education is free and mandatory. And since even before that, 1870. And one of the things that's wonderful is that you even have tiny little areas, rural areas with tiny schools and one professor that will be teaching a group of students to make sure everybody gets educated. It's also very well ranked in terms of the World Bank's for its political stability. And everybody knows about the universal healthcare system in Costa Rica and the educational system. So it's something we've always been very proud. And I think that's why we have that tradition and that attitude of being pura vida. And pura vida, you're going to hear it constantly, has so many different connotations because pura vida is kind of like the carpe diem of Costa Rica. Pura vida means actually living life, pure life, every day, every moment. And it can be a relaxing life. It can be things that are wonderful and great. And you're telling people, pura vida. Or it can actually mean like, pura vida, like that's a great idea. Even it can be used in so many different ways. It can even be used sometimes like if you do something to me that I didn't kind of like, but I'm saying like, oh, okay, that was nice. You did that. I'll say, de pura vida, like saying, but it's actually usually used in positive ways. Bretear. You're gonna hear the word bretear, and I tend to roll my R's because I lived quite a long time in the States, but listening to the guy we heard before, a lot of people will say breteash. So start getting used to those R's. Brocha, and brocha means being brown noser, trying to always get brownie points in classes. So that's another slang word. Casado is the typical food and plate in Costa Rica. And it will usually have a protein, rice, beans, those delicious fried plantains, and salad. Gallo pinto, which is a typical breakfast in Costa Rica, usually has eggs, also rice and beans. And rice and beans is actually the equivalent of that mixture of beans with rice, but it's actually with coconut. It also has coconut oil and coconut milk, so it tastes more coconutty. And that's in the Caribbean side of Costa Rica. So those are all wonderful things that you guys will be able to taste when you're here. Filo. If somebody says, que filo, it means, ooh, I'm super hungry. So that's slang for saying, I'm hungry. Que filo. So after Spanish classes at noon, you guys will probably be saying, que filo. And that means, I'm really hungry. You should definitely try the food because, like this other student discovered, food is super important in Costa Rica.
When you think about Costa Rica, you probably drum up images of epic surf spots, mind-boggling biodiversity, sloths, frogs, snakes, you name it. But you might not be thinking about food. You should. Here's what to eat when you're in Costa Rica. All that lush land makes for incredible produce. You'll find vibrant tropical fruit stands and farmers markets throughout the country selling everything from cacao, that's the raw fruit used to make chocolate, to coconuts. A Costa Rican staple are pejibales, a slightly savory, almost artichoke-tasting fruit of a palm tree. Locals boil them with salt and serve them with a smattering of mayo to snack on with coffee at break time. For ticos, that coffee is a must. The Central Valley is home to high-elevation plantations that produce excellent world-class coffee. The coffee is harvested, roasted, and consumed everywhere from fancy cafes to humble farms where they use a simple pour-over called a chorreador to brew. Small-batch organic roaster Taza Amarilla inside San Jose's Feria Verde markets poured one of my favorite sips of the trip. Another drink of note, cacique, or guaro. In the old days, the sugar cane was juiced by using oxen, and Santa Juana still keeps this tradition alive at their rural hotel property. The locals showed me how it's done, and were happy to share some of their fresh, undistilled sugarcane juice. Once distilled, it tastes a lot like white rum and gives you the courage to do things like ride horseback through thick Costa Rican jungle or cliff jump into waterfalls. After a night of drinking a little bit too much guaro, you'll want to hit up one of Costa Rica's classic food counters called sodas. There you'll find the plato típico called casados, made up of black beans, rice, and a choice of protein. You'll also see the Caribbean-inspired rice and beans made with coconut milk and coconut oil, and gallitos, a tortilla topped with finely chopped veggies, salsa, and a farm egg. I also noshed on arepas and banana leaf wrapped tamales and some incredibly fresh seafood ceviche. I've got gallos, I've got kombucha. Any place I can get street food and kombucha in the same spot, I am a happy freaking camper. This is amazing. And guess what? Costa Rica also makes incredible dairy. I got my hands dirty on the farm where incredible artisan cheeses are produced. Let me tell you, milking a cow is a lot harder than you'd think. It's all in the technique. They use the milk in their intricate coffee drinks as well as my new favorite dessert, helados de sorbetera, a slushy-style ice cream that's spiked with warm spices like nutmeg, cinnamon, and clove. I can't wait to come back to this gorgeous Central American country to discover, and let's be honest, eat more. Hungry for more delicious food videos? Don't forget to subscribe and check out my blog post on Costa Rica below.
No jumping. No, I don't want you guys jumping into any type of things like that. You have to be safe. So Chepe is how we call San Jose, and that's our capital. So if somebody says, well, let's go Chepe, let's go, vamos a Chepe, they're telling you, let's go downtown. Plata, we call money plata instead of dinero. We usually say plata, no tengo plata, I don't have money, because plata was the original silver that was used a long time ago in the time when Columbus came to Latin America. And so they continue to use the word plata. Tico or tica, that's the name that we use to say Costa Ricans. We could say costarricense, that's the formal way of saying it, but actually a lot of people say un tico or una tica, and they're talking about Costa Ricans. La hora tica is one of the things that we're not that culturally proud of. And it tends to be what I was telling you, that slothy lifestyle of nonchalant and just taking life slowly. And so you might see people who will sometimes be a little bit late to whatever time you decided to meet at. That's called tico time. So when somebody says ahorita, which seems like it would be right now, it actually isn't meaning right now. It means ahorita, means in a little bit, in a while. Chiva. Chiva, which it sometimes is used interchangeably with Pura Vida, but Chiva means that's really cool. My is the equivalent of dude or bro. So in Spain, they'll say something like tío, or in Mexico, they say güey, dude in the US, but actually in Costa Rica, you're going to hear the Costa Ricans use my all over. They'll use it in a sentence several times to talk to the person my and then to talk about another my. So it's crazy. You'll hear it a lot. Tenga paz. Tenga paz is when if you're getting a little bit too stressed and you have a rhythm that's too fast and you're getting, everybody's stressed as well, they'll tell you like, tenga paz, calm down. Or it's kind of the equivalent like of tranquilo. Que dicha? Que dicha means great, excellent. It literally means, dicha means luck. It means having a wonderful time as well. So que dicha means that's great luck. Pulperia is our equivalent of a convenience store, but a tiny one. We have like AM, PM, and Fresh Market, which you'll see because we have one right by our campus, and you'll get to see it. And then we have pulperia, which are more like the mom and pop convenience stores, and they're all over Costa Rica as well. And you can get little things like crackers and snacks and things like that. Queque. We usually don't say pastel or torta like in other Latin American countries. We say queque, and that's what we mean. We're talking about cake when we say queque. Dar un yello. If something scares you or something startles you, somebody will say like, ah, me dio un yello. And that can be, I almost had a heart attack. Sometimes they'll use it, like if you get very infuriated, me dio un yello, and it means I almost had a heart attack because I was so mad. You'll hear that too. Of course, berrinche means to throw a tantrum. So if all of a sudden you guys are in a bad mood and you start acting, very harsh or insulting with some of your friends, they might say, no haga berrinche. Don't throw a tantrum. When somebody is actually being very flirty or talking to somebody else in a flirty way, sometimes you'll hear somebody say, Le están echando los perros. Echarle los perros a alguien means somebody who's being quite flirtatious. Hablar paja means to talk too much nonsense or BS, like you say in the States. Ponerle ganas. If somebody says, póngale ganas, or ellos le ponen ganas, it means they're actually doing a hard effort. They're actually doing a lot of effort to have fun, to do something well. Le ponen ganas. And this is one of our kind of final little videos here where we have some Costa Ricans in the States being interviewed about Costa Rican slang.
How can I explain my? My means in regular translation would be like dude. And when we're talking to our friends, we use my several times in one sentence. I'll give an example in Spanish of how my is used. ¿Qué mae? ¿Cómo estás, mae? That is like, hey dude, how are you? And then he will reply back saying, todo bien, mae. Vieras que me encontré aquel otro mae por allá. That translates to, I'm okay. I run into the other friend yesterday. We use my just to connect words that doesn't need any connection. It's just our way to express friendship. I would dare to say that in a day we use it 1,000 times, maybe.
Manda huevo. Manda huevo. Maybe like, come on, dude. Why are you doing that? Manda huevo. Or probably to complain why somebody else is not doing something he's supposed to do. So maybe there, I would say manda huevo. If you don't know how to do this, manda huevo.
Pura vida, that's the most traditional word that we have in Costa Rica. Direct translation, it means pure life, but we use it to say goodbye, to say hello, to be, when you're looking someone in the street all the way, que mae, pura vida, just say, that's just in the saying of, hey, how's it going, and those kind of things. So it's the most popular phrase that we have in our entire country. So you can use it pretty much in every sentence that you want to use it.
Tuanis. Okay, so tuanis is an expression that we use when we want to say that everything's good. So you can say tuanis instead of thank you, for example. Or if you ask me, how are you? Tuanis. So everything is fine. And that's how it works.
Al chile could be translated to for real. Maybe, right? You can use it as a question, like al chile, como, is it for real? Or you can use it as an exclamation. Sí, mae, al chile. Sí, yes, of course, for real. It's true, or etc. I don't know what the word comes from because it has no relationship to anything. And chile means pepper.
Vara. So vara is a word that has many uses because you can use it to refer to absolutely anything. It literally translates to thing or stuff. So if I say, ¿qué es esa vara? It's like, what's that? So it's very, it's very useful, but it's very informal as well. But that's what it means. Like it can be anything. It's just a substitute for an object.
Sarpe. This is a fun one. I like sarpe because that's when you go out with your friends. You know, it's kind of late at night, and there's always this one friend that calls you, "Mae, let's go for a sarpe," or "Vamos por un sarpe." That actually means go for the one last beer at the one last bar. That's the literal translation, but it usually never happens. You go for the sarpe and you still have 14 more beers, 10 more beers, and then you're passed out. So do not trust someone that tells you go for a sarpe.
Chinchorro. Okay. Chinchorro means some kind of, it refers to a really nasty bar or just a not very pretty bar that you would go to because things are cheaper. So if you want to go to a chinchorro, or if you want to go to one of these bars, you're going to say, vamos a ese chinchorro, that chinchorro from there, we can go there. Things are cheap there. But yeah, that's chinchorro. And They're the best because they have the cheapest food and the cheapest drinks.
This is I would say it's a more of a new slang that we have for the last 10, 15 years.
So
And
new.
it means usually, man, this is like, how you doing, Mai? It's a cachete, like everything's fine, everything's okay. A Pachuco way of saying like Mike, está todo cachete. The direct translation that it's to the cheek, which makes absolutely no sense. But that's how we do it. Like, how you doing, man? A cachete, man, a cachete explotado. But I personally, I don't use it that much, but I know kids nowadays use it.
Goma. So goma is a very familiar word for many Costa Ricans. It's the word that we use for a hangover. Like, ah, my que goma. So it's like and you're gonna have to drink lots of water and probably some aloe vera as well.
All right. So as you can see, tons of different slangs. I feel if I can. Tons of different slang to learn and tons of different ways of speaking and a full experience in terms of interacting with Costa Ricans and with your professors and with your host families. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I don't know if you guys have any questions that you might have in terms of the slang and the speed of the talking or anything like that you might have. Just turn on your mic and ask away if you have any. And if you don't, it's great because that means that you're going to come here with a very open-minded and adventurous type attitude and start practicing. Start practicing those R's just for fun instead of the rolling. If you never knew how to roll R's, you don't have to worry anymore. You just have to do that. And you know what's so funny? Because some of the other Latin Americans say that Costa Rican R is more like the American R, like the gringo R. So they say, oh, Costa Ricans speak that R like the gringos. And it's, it is different. It's not an R, it's a R. So it's funny. It's funny how it's perceived from different cultures and different areas in Latin America. But you'll have a lot of fun practicing those little nuances. Nick, you had a question? Turn on your mic.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So in terms of conjugation, so is vos just a direct replacement for tu instead? I just want to make sure that's right.
Pretty much. Pretty
Okay.
much. You're going to notice, though, that unlike the countries that predominantly use tu, tu is a very definite informal way of talking, maybe like in Mexico and in Spain. And then usted is pretty formal. If you and I don't know each other very well, I'll use usted. You're going to, if you're very careful, you're going to notice in Costa Rica that even Carlos and I, who have known each other for a long time, sometimes I'll say usted to him. And I'm not trying to keep a distance or say I'm talking to you very seriously. For some reason, Costa Rica get those references of formal and informal. We exchange it. Sometimes we'll talk with a vos, and then all of a sudden 10 minutes later we're saying usted. So don't get scared when you're like, why do they change the formal and informal so much? It's not about formality.
No, I
We like to
was
mix it
just
up.
curious if it was a direct translation.
Yes, it is.
from-
It is. It's, instead of tú, pretty much you're going to hear vos.
Perfect. Thank you.
Nice to see you, Grace. And we will have another little meeting on, for those of you who are not traveling or those of you who are not going crazy, on Sunday 3rd, I'll be sending you a little invite to meet one more time before Monday when we see each other and we start classes on Sunday, the 3rd of January, just to say Happy New Year to everyone. And those of you who will already be in Costa Rica will already be with the warmth weather of the tropical country and getting ready to start classes that Monday and starting your adventure. So I hope you have a great, great, great Christmas. I have my little Spirit of Christmas hat here just to make sure that I'm already ready for you guys. And I did want to say something at the beginning. you might just see me like this. So if you don't recognize me, you'll remember what I look like with a mask on Monday when we do the campus tour. Just the short hair, and I won't be wearing my little reading glasses, but I will have my mask on. And you guys have to have your mask on because that's the main thing we're going to do. We're going to have a blast. We're going to have so much fun, but we really need to take care of each other to make sure that everything goes well and safe. Keep checking the announcements I'll post for you guys during the holidays in the orientation. It'll probably get to your emails like it usually does, and I'll have little announcements. For example, like the meeting that we'll have on Sunday the 3rd, and also announcements like how to register for tropical dance classes for Mondays and Thursdays. If you're interested in learning how to do Costa Rican recipes, how to register for that cooking class as well. So I'll send you little messages throughout the holidays to keep in touch. See you guys. Have wonderful holidays. Take care. And see you super soon.
Thank you.
Thank
Pura
you.
vida.
Pura vida. Muchas gracias.
Con mucho gusto. Chao.